I'm here again with Andy Delso.
Hello.
Let's start chatting. You may want to move a little closer if that's comfortable for you. Not that close. That's probably way too close.
Is that better?
It's probably way too close. All right. I don't know. Is there anything you want to talk about? Any things since our last conversation that? No.
Nothing that I can think of offhand. Maybe something will come up.
So in the last conversation I had with Noah, I asked him about which one was it? I asked him about how often, or I asked him the question, how often do your opinions change about something? I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Do you find yourself changing your opinions frequently?
Yeah, I'd say yeah, as new information becomes available that, either provides more insight into my opinion or makes it a little more concrete, or disproves it or something like that.
Yeah, I find myself changing frequently, but that's purely based on what data am I provided and then whether or not that new data makes more sense than the previous data I had.
Yeah, and for me it's like when you read like industry blogs or something like that, a lot of times it feels like people read them as if they're the Bible. Like it's, and like when I was trying to write my own for our Insights blog, I tried to write it contrary to that. It wasn't like, this is what you have to do. It's like, oh, hey, this worked for us. Go ahead and try it, see how it works kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like sometimes, like it's like some people read them as they are fact versus that they could really just be a bunch of opinions that aren't necessarily true or false.
Yeah.
And evaluated on their own merit.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely why I typically steered away from them, is I don't want to get caught up in all of that. But I mean, before I started working at Sprout, I had stumbled across some YouTube videos of a person giving a talk about testing, and like things that they were saying resonated with me more than I thought they would. I mean, I may not, take anything of what they said, but the ideas around what they said definitely made me kind of look retrospectively at like why I was in QA, and and then that kind of like informed how I've moved forward. And just like I think one of the ideas was like that like you can test anything, like there isn't anything that you can't test to some degree.
It's like with the blog reading and YouTube watching, like be a QA for what you're consuming.
Yeah.
Like don't just believe in it immediately, but be skeptical and read it, but be like, how does that go for or against how I feel about something? Does that make me change how I feel about that subject?
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would have really, because I mean, during that time before I started working here, I was still kind of going back and forth of whether or not I wanted to stay in QA, and I don't think I really had the right vocabulary to say how I felt about it. And like watching that video, and I think part of it was just like I don't know if I'd go as far as like passion, but like the person was very um, animated about all the things that they were talking about, and that definitely led to me being more engaged with it than just somebody kind of reading stats or.
For sure.
So yeah, that definitely made me think of like, well, I guess I've never really thought about why I do what I do. I know it is important, and I do it, but I never really thought about it. It was more of just like, I'm in this role, I do these things, but I didn't really think about why I did them.
This is my job, but I don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird.
What is like your major thought or opinion about QA?
I mean, at least coming out of that, it was like, I do what I do because I want to provide an above average experience for others in whatever thing I'm working with. So being able to provide that, and I mean, there's like an element of like yourself that you're putting in there because you're a part of that process. And so you're basically saying like, of my experiences that I've had, I know that going this direction feels a lot better than going the current direction, and our consumers of this product will benefit or have a higher level of value from it. And so that kind of putting yourself into the thing that you do, giving you more reason to do it. And that was kind of what I came, at least one of the things that I came away with from it. And then that was like, you know what, I do like what I do because every day you're learning something new or experiencing something new or engaging your brain in sorts of puzzles of figuring things out, and you can deal with optimizations, you can deal with like improvements on the product.
Mm-hmm.
And so like all of those things are interesting, and that continues me down the path.
Do you enjoy it more or less now that you're doing more automation related things?
I would say I'm enjoying it more than I used to, and for different reasons than I used to. Because I mean, before it was like, it was a job, and part of it was, I got to work with people that I got along with, and so that definitely helped.
Sure.
And or when I was in games, there was the element of being in games, so that also helped it. But I don't think I ever really thought about why until I was out of it for a while, and then I was like, there are all these other reasons that I now can like look back on and say I enjoy what I do, and I would like to figure out other ways to enjoy what I do. So yeah, being able to get to do more different things just adds that much extra to the enjoyment I get out of what I do.
That's kind of how I feel sometimes. Is like, you know, my major in college was econ with a minor in computer science, which, looking back now, it feels like a almost a really good combination to become a QA, because with economics you get a lot of like analytical kind of skills and risk analysis and stuff like that based on like market trends and stuff.
Right.
And then computer science, but you get the programming background. So that now, like when I was at TrustWave, it was literally all planning and test execution, no automation. And we started to get involved with it, but you know, even though I had prior experience, it wasn't really something they let me get into. And then I came here, and it was just like, man, we aren't going to pigeonhole you into a particular role. So I was just like, all right, cool, I'm going to look at Python again. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, our automation's in Java, let's go look at Java. And you know, like you said, it allows for different things to do. And you know, I view a QA as almost like a full stack engineer with an emphasis on quality. Yeah. Like, you know, front end, back end, design, product. You know, we kind of look at it all from a quality perspective and an engineering perspective. You know, yeah, it just always. I definitely enjoy, especially working here. Sprout makes it easy, but I definitely enjoy what we do here.
Yeah.
But what you were describing about that video and your opinion on it and whatnot, it sounds very similar to our long-running discussion of what is quality. Like, it feels like it falls really into that.
Yeah. There's that whole that whole idea, I don't think is really, at least when I started, that wasn't really a thing you think about. I mean, there's like, you know, make sure everything works as expected, and then that kind of becomes quality, but then you're not good. That's like doing the bare minimum. You're not going beyond that.
Right.
It's like, are things working? Yes. Okay, well then that's good.
It's a great experience.
So it's like looking beyond just the not broken was definitely something that I don't know. I mean, I probably would have eventually started thinking about that, but it was definitely not on my mind early on, especially because of the fact that, like, when you're in, or when I was in those roles early on, it was like purely an execution based thing. So it's like, you don't really need to think about what you're doing. You have either your list that you go through, or you have a particular area that it's like, you own this area, this is your playground, do whatever. And then if you find something that doesn't work, report it. And it's like, that doesn't provide the opportunity to think beyond it, because it doesn't require anything beyond just do a thing.
And the problem with, like, let's see, I've been 7.5 years, going on 8 years of being QA. Like, after doing that for most, where you're doing a majority of manual testing, it's hard to break that cycle. Like, you know, we did an activity in Seattle where we acted as if we were like Rachel and the social team, using our tool to get what we needed to answer, like our positions questions.
Right.
and it was tough. Like to do that. Like eventually I just skipped the UI and was like, give me the export and CSV and let me do what I need to do. And it was very enlightening, like to the fact that, yeah, we can test that it works, but does it work for somebody? Like, does it provide the value? And you know, it's even still now, because it's not something you do regularly, I need to learn to exercise that more, like that eye, not just the critical eye for, is that pixel out of place, but you know, is the tool doing something for somebody?
It's is what we're building providing value to the person that's going to purchase it.
And that's why, like, when we were doing the Instagram performance report, I signed up another Instagram for my streaming, and that has now like a Facebook business page, which I can use, and I've been using it. I've been posting to it, and I get very fluctuations in the amount of users that watch me, but you know, on good days when somebody raids me or something, like I have a handful of people, but even Instagram helps. Like, it's helped me connect with other streamers and form friendships, but then I can go into the Instagram report and be like, oh yeah, this one, people like that a lot, or and how a customer might use it, a small customer, you know.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things that I've experienced is every time I go somewhere else, well, maybe not every time, but when I've gotten to like different jobs, it's typically been in a different thing. So like, I was in games, I did web, I did more games, I worked on mobile phones, I worked on DVR boxes. Like, every time I've gone somewhere else, like, I'm able to, I think part of it is like appreciate the thing more, and like I, you know, enter into a world that I didn't even really think about. Like, you don't think about all the I mean, I guess it's kind of like, you know, seeing how the sausage is made, but you get to like see all those pieces that you never really even thought about. Like, I mean, how often do you think about, you know, your modem or your like things that you just plug in and they work? You don't have to think about it. It's like you don't even typically get the opportunity to appreciate those things because they are so easy to use, that like that's the whole point, is it's a plug and you're done. And like, if you never think about that thing, then it's doing its job.
That's like how I feel about cars, right? Like, who the hell came up with the first engine design? Like if you look at automobile engines, they're crazy complex. And it's the same with, you know, computer hardware too. Like, I've never done anything like, you know, like Blake has built his own keyboard and stuff, like soldering the keys on and laying out the board and stuff like that. You know, I've never done, but doing that would be cool. But it's like, you know, now that you and I and Bedford have worked on making a game together, like, we can see how hard it is to do, and then you appreciate it more. Like, I ended up going on Kickstarter and like favoriting like every little indie game I found, and then they pop up, you know, 2 days before, and I get to look at the video and be like, oh wow, that's really cool that they're doing that. I wonder how they did it. And now I can kind of have some semblance. Same thing with like, you know, doing the mentorships here, like JavaScript and stuff like that, or just adding the selectors. I see what the web devs are doing, or Python with the tire swing. Like, it's very interesting, you know, to hold other people in very high regards when you see what goes into it. Much like you're saying about the hardware stuff that we just take for granted sometimes.
Yeah, and it's interesting to
this
be, yeah, mobile phones are a great example of something that we only think about when they're not working.
Yeah, same thing with software.
Yeah, it's like if it's working, then you don't typically praise it when it's working, but when it's not working, you're very adamant about letting it know how much you dislike it.
Yep.
But yeah, it's weird to be in a role. Yeah, the QA is a strange role. If you could work anywhere, where would you want to work?
If testing and developing games wasn't such a pain in the ass and like number of hours a week that they do,
Yeah.
I would totally probably at least try it once. But I mean, being in the social space is awesome right now, but if there was a way to start my own successful company around something, that would be really cool too.
Yeah. Yeah. If anything, I think, I mean, I have said it before, but like, if games paid better, I would probably go back to games because I just enjoy the community there.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
But
that's why we gotta make this game, man. Like,
it's true.
Then you have the best of both worlds. Supposing you make money off it, though.
Yeah, that's true.
But then it becomes less of a labor of love.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, being in, I mean, that's the same as I was saying. Like, I never really thought about social media until I'm now working in it. And it's a weird environment to be in because of, I mean, it's partly like being in just tech in general, which is just constantly moving, but then it's also needing to be even faster than that because it has to be in front of everything and kind of lead that space. So you can't ever settle down because if you do, you die.
I almost feel like games is like that too.
Yeah.
Like there's always, like, especially on the AAA side of things, like, you know, like when somebody comes up with a new it's kind of like the zombie movie effect.
Yeah.
Like somebody puts, like, the whole goal is to get that first zombie movie out first because everybody will be all excited about it.
Right.
And then everyone after that, everyone's like,
Yeah.
Is it exactly the same or is it different?
Same with Penguin movies. Same with
Exactly.
What were some other ones?
That's probably just how fans are in general, though. But
Yeah, I mean, it's people gravitate towards whatever's doing well. So especially when you're trying to make money, you're like, oh, this is selling. Let's do that.
But it feels like this kind of software is even more so. Like, get it out there quick.
Yeah, you've got to definitely be a trendsetter.
Yeah.
I would say games is not as intensive as social, though. Just in the sense that there's a lot more that you can still, like, hang on to. Where you're not always needing to move to the next thing. You can, like, refine things and it still will, like, live in a community. But eventually that, you know, well runs dry and then you've got to start moving forward. But, yeah.
It's always interesting, though, like, when a new game comes out, right? And you always have that, like, 5% of your player base that will literally play it nonstop and beat it in, like, 20 hours. And then it's like, then what? You know, they're looking for the next content. And
I've definitely been.
I know, like, Division's been out for, like, a month or two now, and I'm almost done, but the guy that I'm playing with has been 30 for a while, and I've already seen players maxed out that have probably beat the raid, and I don't know. I try to be casual, but
There's a few games that I've definitely beaten in one session. Like, I think I want to say BioShock 2, I sat down for one session and then beat it. And that was like 9 hours long.
I might have beaten like
I guess.
Portal 2 in one session.
Yeah. But this was like, the game came out and I immediately just sat down and then played all the way through it.
It's like the people that would buy the Harry Potter book and read it in one sitting, you know, like. But the thing with the games is like, there's a negative effect on that, right? A lot of those gamers are then like, I beat it, it was too short or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, but they spent 5 years making it. Like, what do you expect?
Yeah. People are. There's a lot of people out there like that.
Yep. They like their internet soapboxes.
If you could do any job, what job would you do? Or what job would you have?
Like instead of QA.
Sure. Or it could be in the field you already are in.
I want to be the next James Whitaker or whatever. I don't know. The guy from Google, right? Isn't it?
Is it?
No, I'm joking.
I assume this. I'm pretty sure my thought around this was like, you don't need to have the skill for it. Like, you would just have the skill. So, like, if you could have any skill to be able to do any job, which job would you have?
It's funny because I would love to like play music professionally and make money doing it. Like, I have so many like things I do. Like, I like drawing. Like, it'd be great to be like an animator. But you know, like being like I think it'd be cool to be a successful game developer in any aspect of it without 80 hours a week.
Or more.
Yeah, right. But I like my backup for that. It would be cool to be a successful musician. Something that involves making people happy.
The drama of being a musician, or would you be one of the good musicians that don't have that problem?
Are you referring to my cocaine problem? No. Yeah, no, that wouldn't be any good. Like, see, like you think about it, and then I have kids, right? You know, that wouldn't be cool for kids, right? But then, like, I recently got into photography. Like, that would be cool, like, to be a published photographer.
Yeah.
So,
think of anything, I would like to be in a position where I could just come up with ideas and then have other people make them for me.
I was gonna say, you do come up with a lot of ideas already.
Yeah, I know, but like, my job would be where I can actually get paid for those ideas.
A creative director.
Yeah, something like that. But it would have a very wide focus of what we would do. Yeah, probably something like that. Or a producer, I guess. I don't know if they have that.
Yeah, they do creative, like, but usually there's something, you know, like say for example the next Star Wars movie, right? If you're the producer on that, you're kind of confined to Star Wars, but
sure.
There's still plenty of ideas within that, right?
Yeah.
So, or the next Metroid game or something like that, right?
So probably some sort of creative director or producer role in probably a company that I own.
Executive producer Darren Watson.
Yeah. Who knows?
I mean, you could be like, what's his face from Pixar, and your name is on every frickin' movie. even if you didn't really do
like
much.
the head of Pixar?
Yeah, chief creative officer, who's always listed as the executive producer as well.
I mean, that would definitely be a role.
Kathleen Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I do like the creative. I like creative, and I like computers, and I like traveling. So
you could be a traveling computer artist.
Like the was it the Nomads?
Yeah.
That's like the thing right now.
Is that a thing now?
Yeah. It was like it's a big thing in the past couple of years, like nomadic working.
Huh. Like, I know there are like a bunch of people that just like have travel blogs and all they do is travel and make money off of that.
The guy that I bought into that like Pixel Art Academy Retronator, he does that, and he just carries his Mac around and he's got his iPad hooked up to it as an extra monitor and does pixel art and makes his website.
Mean, totally makes sense. I mean, if you have a laptop and you don't need to be in one spot, then like you could just travel and work. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely thought about like going somewhere for like a month and just working remote for a month from somewhere else. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
If I was like 10 years younger without kids, right? But I had the skills I have now.
Right. That makes sense. Is there something about your profession that you don't think is talked about enough? I think Noah answered this with what was it? It was about automation and manual testing.
As far as
the conversation kind of revolved around having a problem and thinking about the tools to best solve that problem versus going one direction and having that become the problem that you're trying to solve for. Like if you go down the automation route saying, how do we automate this thing, instead of, here is the problem, what are the tools we have to solve that problem, and then how are we going to use those?
I see that.
That was one thing that's kind of...
my answer to that would be how I would say that QA are kind of the unsung heroes of the development process. I don't think that we as a team in any of the jobs that I've been in are really recognized very often by the rest of the company for the work that we do and how much value we provide. That was one of my objectives with the blog article, was to be like, hey, QA exists at Sprout and here's what we did.
Yeah.
And be nice, it'll get published at some point. But and it's always bothered me. I know that people appreciate us, but I don't think that it's ever like publicly talked about.
Sure.
Except between us.
Yeah.
We get our feedback from our managers and stuff, but never. I mean, Justin is really good. Like Justin, when I talk to him, like, yeah, he's very appreciative of it. But I don't know that the rest of the company necessarily understands what we do, and it might be that we're too quiet about it.
Sure.
Might, but yeah.
Yeah, I would agree that there isn't typically I guess it kind of goes back to the idea that if it's not broken, then you don't think about it. So QA is typically only thought about when things are breaking or broken, but when everything works fine, we're invisible.
Okay.
And like part of that is probably due to the fact that we don't have like a
Tangible.
yeah, I mean we don't typically like make something that's visible to a larger scope,
Yeah.
because most of our things are making sure other things are working well, and those things are typically the things that are seen. I don't know if that's exactly why, but out of sight, out of mind. If our role is around making sure things work well, then we are invisible.
Yeah, and I know when they talk about engineering, that's us.
Yeah.
It's inherently built in to how much we sell and all the sprout love we get.
Sure.
With the fact that our developers and our designers and our product managers are all fantastic as well, right? And our salespeople and our support team, right? Like we're just a fantastic team, which kind of sucks because then everybody's the same sometimes, but you know what I mean, like
yeah,
really gotta go above the bar.
If everyone's special, nobody's special.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean it's been a problem everywhere I've been. QA is typically only recognized within QA. But at least here, like, developers can show it more, especially more than I've ever seen anywhere else.
Yeah, no, I think there's a high amount of mutual respect at Sprout between, that's one of the questions I used to ask during interviews was like, in the past, have you ever experienced that whole QA versus dev versus QA mentality? And I did at my last job from a young guy, but I feel like now that trend has shifted. People see the benefits, and developers are taught about testing in college and stuff and in training courses. So it makes that part of it easier. But yeah, I definitely think there's a very high amount of mutual respect between our team and engineering as a whole.
Yeah.
So
I would agree.
I think that all the devs on my team, Ian and Mike and Cody, and all the back end devs and everything just do fantastic work. And they all have a high respect for quality too. Which makes the manual testing things easier. Well, not easier, but it's less happy path looking and more exploratory, and then also allows time for individual growth, like getting the API tests running and getting that going. All the backend devs were like, wow, this is awesome. We should totally throw this in our CI pipeline and start using it as a tool, and that kind of recognition is cool. It's cool to see that. But going back to, the devs being amazing and whatnot, it when your whole team is responsible for quality, it just makes it easier all around.
Yeah.
And it's my heavy belief, my heartfelt belief that the devs are their best feedback loop, their quickest feedback loop. If they understand quality, they're going to find the bugs sooner than me, then finding it, then writing it up, then poking them and bothering them, and it's found before it's given to somebody else and they're on to the next task.
Right.
So, and that's why we shift left, right? So we can recognize things up front and talk with them before they start developing, hopefully, and be like, hey, this is what I'm concerned about, you know, what do you feel? And more collaboration than there ever was in at my last job. Which is how it should be.
Yeah.
You're a team.
Yeah, yeah. Being able to be in a team and feel like you're a part of a team, not being on something called a team, but everybody is their own individual and
Truly
does
embedded.
their own thing.
Yeah.
Along with the fact that being a QA in a quality focused group helps the conversations.
Oh yeah, I think we have a very, you know, it's not perfect, but we have a really good quality culture at Sprout. There's still an activity that I wanted to go through at some point with to see how each of the squads feel. Be interesting. This is an activity from Alan Page, I think, with regards to modern test principles, if you've heard of those. Which is funny because a short segue, he went on a rant about Selenium on Twitter recently, and their most recent podcast episode for A/B testing, which is Alan, and he's at Unreal or Unity, Unreal or Unity. He's there, and then Brent is at Microsoft. They both used to be at Microsoft as testers and whatnot. The most recent podcast episode has Jason, who is basically the godfather of Selenium. Like, he created Selenium, and I found out that he lives in Oak Park. So he was remote on call with them, and it was interesting to get his perspective on why Alan is not happy with Selenium. And the big reason was it's a fantastic tool, but people are just using it in the wrong way. And like flaky selector, like he's like, I went to a Google Dev Conf one time, or Google Test Automation conference, and literally every talk could be distilled down to flaky tests, flaky tests, flaky tests. And it's because, and it was also interesting in the first version, or within the first few versions of Selenium, there was no find by CSS. There was no find by. It was meant to be used on like custom data selectors.
Interesting.
And XPath wasn't there, and they had to gain XPath because of Google Maps, because there was no easy way to do it.
Right.
So, yeah, it was a very interesting episode. I think I posted it, but I forget why I brought that up now. It was an interesting tidbit.
Yeah.
Not as much of a short segue as I thought, because we got off track.
That's all good. It's just supposed to be a conversation.
True.
There's no goal outside of enjoying the talk. What is something you do professionally that you are proud of?
I would say I'm very proud of the Selenium stuff that I do. I was very proud of the blog article that I wrote, and just how much I've grown since I've started doing it 3 years ago now. Just how much I've learned, how much I've grown, and you know, I feel like I should call myself a developer. You know, because it is what it is.
Yeah.
So
it may not be
I earned the engineering title.
Seen by customers, but it's seen by some customer. It may not be the customers purchasing the product, but it's seen by
QA and developers.
The customer of the automation that's built is the product itself.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it's used against. That's developers use it to verify that everything's still working and nothing's broken. So
it was always funny too that at TrustWave, since I started there, they were they were like basically test engineers from the get-go, even though there was no code related stuff.
Right.
And then I come here, right, and I'm a quality assurance analyst, and then now we're back to the engineering titles. Like, now after 3 years of doing Java pretty regularly, I feel like I've earned the title of engineer. Whereas back in TrustWave, like I look back now and I'm like, I wasn't even doing anything close to that. And I mean, yeah, an engineer is solving problems and stuff like that, but analyst is also very similar to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, all of those job titles are names.
They are. It's just interesting to be like, that's what, I'm proud that I do that now, and getting to go to my daughter's school when she was in kindergarten and talk about programming, because they're doing like mouse things, or you put in the directions to get into the maze, and this year they're doing the dot and dash robots and stuff. It was just really cool. I mean, I'm sure the kids didn't quite understand it, and coming from a support background, I try and explain things multiple ways and easy ways as possible, and I think I got something across. But it was really cool, to talk about it like that, because it's so prominent.
Yeah.
A lot of people take programming for granted, right? Like the phone, your computer, video games, right?
Yeah.
And it's cool to say that I do that, and then your parents are like, "What? What do you do? What does a QA do?"
That would be an interesting topic to talk about, is like the generation changes and like adapting to technology, because that is, there's a lot of stuff to talk about there.
I think it's funny that my one grandma just hates technology. Well, like, she had an iPad for a little bit and then didn't realize she had to charge it and stuff like that. But then my other grandma has probably one of the newer iPhones and is fine with it. It's just interesting, because my grandma, I quote, she's like, "I refuse to do it. I'm old, and I'm not gonna have to worry about it." Like, at some point, right? I was like, yeah, but it's not that hard.
Yeah, that was maybe that's something for another talk. Maybe a long ways down the line, get like parents to talk about
what they think.
Well, either like
those
about
memes, right?
Huh?
It's like those memes.
Oh, like people react to? Or?
No, like what I do at work, what my parents think I do at work, or whatever.
Right, yeah. Reality versus whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are...
That'd be a cool idea. My parents were really glad they came to the Parents' Day, and like, my dad is like, "I still don't quite understand what you do, but I understand more about what Sprout in general does."
QA in general is...
But what are you proud of?
Difficult. What am I proud of?
I want to know.
I am proud of the discussions that I get to provoke or invoke or evoke, one of those, or all of them. I am proud of I don't know, there's a lot of things. Maybe not, I don't know if proud is the right word.
Well, I would say I would be proud of the conversations, The way I see it is like, I have a hard time sometimes putting into words what QA is and what it does, right? But I think that the more that we talk about it, even in this casual manner, and the questions are not quite straight at that, but the more we talk around it, we can hone in on it, I think.
That's
as a team.
Part of my goal is to...
There you go.
Well, it doesn't even have to be specifically for like our team as much as, at least for myself, this is a method for me to know myself
Sure.
is by talking with others in similar and or different roles to see where I sit within their ideas or opinions about things.
Have you talked with anybody else outside QA yet? I know
Yeah.
you threw it out there.
I've talked with some people about whether or not they would be interested in chatting, and some of them have said yes.
Cool.
But I would like to eventually, or at least get through like everybody on QA once. But I think waiting for that might take a while. So I might just start branching out. Just better do it sooner, because getting people to respond back to me is not always the quickest thing. Well, thanks for the conversations, and we'll do more. I'll let you get back to your day.
Sounds good.
All right.